you go to Kalerwe market in Kampala, you go to very many markets here. You go to this side of Kiambu here, we've been able to meet with the Kiambu, but the county government is good because it has already initiated the regenerative agriculture or sustainable agriculture policy by policy at the county government of Kiambu, because when you are buying vegetables or fruits from, mostly vegetables from Nairobi, people will tell you, I cannot buy vegetables that have been uprooted because they are grown along the affluent, they are grown with the affluent, fresh affluent from the sewage in areas along KU and this Kiambu area. So my question was, I looked at what the area of study used by PCPB, and I only saw Nakuru, and that is good because they are looking at West. But they have not mentioned Namangofulo, they have not mentioned Chwele, they have not mentioned the Kimbimbi,
so your
New Downtown.
Your question is like, their sampling areas have excluded the hotspots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why is that? Or if it has been done, why has it remained silent?
Okay.
Because we are really having a lot of problems with the minimal residual levels, misuse of chemicals. Even in Uganda, you come, farmers will tell you, Mr. Omega, I'm not, the acaricide that is being used in Kenya is not strong enough. So I'll go to Uganda and bring. And when they bring from Uganda, they are bringing a DDT. And when it comes, you spray on an animal, the ticks will fall down. But after 21 days, the animal cannot see what it has. The chemical component of even the milk and the meat is so high.
Okay, thank you. I think that one was directed to PCPB. How we have hotspots that seem not to have been sampled. Let me just mention here that the Atlas is available online on the Heinrich-Böll website. We can all access, our online viewers, you can download the Atlas there. Okay, number 2. Let me just say, let's keep our questions short so that many people can have an opportunity to interact, or our comments short. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. David Lele, working for C4 ICRAF as a soil biologist. I have just 2 small questions. One, much is done on pesticides' effect on the human beings. Has this been done on the beneficial soil organisms? Because those are the most important organisms that help us when we are looking at food security and nutritional security. The other thing is the use of biological control is one way that can help us to reduce on the pesticide use. One thing that makes me to worry is we introduce certain insects to feed on pests. What happens to those insects later? Do they become invasive and become uncontrollable? Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. If we have experts in the house, they can also weigh in on some of the comments by members. Let me just mention that, again, communication, that this is a plastic-free event, and so if you wish to have a glass of water, you can just walk out there, you'll find water for you. Thank you. Number 3.
Thank you so much to the presenters for those insightful presentations. And my question first is a clarification. You mentioned that 43 pesticides have been banned, and I wanted to understand. We were told that 76% of the volumes that are, 76% of the volumes that are being used are actually highly hazardous pesticide. They contain ingredients, active ingredients of highly hazardous pesticides. So I wanted to understand, at what point were these 43 pesticides banned? Are they part of those that were included in this atlas, or that was before? And then what proportion of these that have been mentioned in the atlas are those, the 43, what proportion is that? And what is the plan for the remaining ones? Because, yeah, there are quite a number that, I mean, if you're talking of 76% of what is being used being hazardous, highly hazardous, then there are many more. What is the plan? And I wanted to know what is the anticipated acceptance of this report and action by the government. I don't know who can answer that, but I just want to know what is the anticipated action, acceptance of this report, and what, because I know you said that most pesticides are hazardous, but when you talk of highly hazardous pesticides and which have been banned from the country, and I come from the African Population and Health Research Center, and also from the Right to Food Coalition. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the passion. The question is, these ingredients have been banned in their countries of origin, but we are using them here freely. That was your number 3. So we can have number 4, then 5. Who was number 5? That was number 5. So let us keep it brief so that we can have as many as possible.
Dr. Really, very nice meeting. Thank you so much for moderating it very well. Thank you so much for this meeting. And those colleagues who have given papers. And Silke, thank you for arranging for this meeting. I have a day, perhaps too short really, to appreciate the issues that you highlighted in your atlas. These are heavy matters, difficult to understand, difficult to appreciate, and also controversial in a lot of issues. My questions are as follows. One, just short ones, Kuko. One, why can't we have done this regionally? Regional, Eastern Africa with the 7 countries that we have, to appreciate the cross-transboundary movements of these compounds so that those in Uganda, Southern Sudan, Rwanda, Burundi could appreciate the headache of the problem. Same follows this, that this edition is for Kenya, really. Why Kenya could fit in the Eastern African region. Think about it, so that we don't talk about localized here, whereas our neighbors are exporting DDT to destroy our cows. A second short one, Skuku, is this. Where is the list, Ngaruya? The total list of banned pesticides worldwide, and that is already not being brought to Kenya, but being brought to Kenya illegally, so that we distinguish. If it is atrazine, do we use it? We really want specific information so that we don't make conclusions without proof. Third, last one, are you sure, Sikuku, that we'll actually have total amounts of organics of any type to produce 10 hectares of maize or 15 hectares of wheat, using organic material? My name is Professor Atebu Micheka, Chairman of National Research Fund and Professor Emeritus. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. We appreciate the questions are brief and clear. We will need responses. So we can take number 5, and then let's just mention that we can take 2 questions live from our online audience. So our online audience, please just follow. We'll have an opportunity to take 2 questions from the online audience. So after number 5, we'll take another cycle of questions.
Okay, my name is Dr. Nehemiah Mihendo. I work for an organization called Effective IPM Association. We are working with the grassroots farmers to manage pests using different methods. And my questions are very simple and small. One is, Dr. Garoya talked about the problem of the porous borders. I just want to know what is happening, because it's a real problem. Farmers around Nairobi and Kiambu area are going to Tanzania to get any chemical that they find to fight tuta absoluta. So I would like to probably know what is being done. The other one is a comment that we heard about biopesticides. We have heard about these essential insects that are beneficial to the plants, and we have heard that they are coming from outside. What are we doing in Kenya? We need to think how we are going to promote them, and also to promote those interventions that farmers are trying, which have not been researched, and they are very good. We have got very good plants with pesticidal properties, but what is happening to us? We are just, I think we are just discussing about them, but very little is happening in terms of enhancing their research and including packaging and all that, so that they can also be in the market. The private companies have taken it up, and they are producing some of the biopesticides, but they are very expensive, and many farmers cannot afford. Thank you.
Thank you. So the pertinent questions there, affordability, upscaling of biopesticides. So before I take the next cycle of questions or comments, really, I would like Daktari to respond to those that are touching on PCPB. Then after that, we can take the next cycle of questions so that you don't lose the thought.
Yeah, thank you very much for the various questions and comments. I'll respond to a number of them, and I also have my colleagues here with me, so in case I miss anything, they can chip in. The first one is from Dr. Omega, talking about the scope of our sampling and why we did not go to other areas. As I said, this is just the beginning, because as PCPB, we realized that we have various types of data coming from all over, and we decided with the agrochemical industry that we needed to get our own data, really to get the situation on the ground. We started with Nakuru, Kajiado, and Nyandarua counties because they are known in horticulture production, and we intend in the future to scale it up and go to other hotspot areas. And as I said, in our survey that we are doing now, in collaboration with the Michigan State University, we are taking 10 counties, and we are looking at the level of non-conforming products. And this time round, Kirinyaga is included in the survey that we are doing. Then my other observation is the question from Dr. Arerei, asking how we deal with beneficial soil organisms. It is only that time could not allow, but in the process of evaluating products, companies submit data on non-target organisms. For instance, as a representative, so for soil organisms, we have studies on earthworms. For representative studies for invertebrates, we have studies done on bees, mainly focusing on oral administration and also contact. And then for those representing organisms in water, we have Daphnia studies, and then we also have studies done on fish. So this is not just a Kenyan way of doing it, this is an international way of evaluating pesticides. Then the other question was on the issue of 76% of products being imported being highly hazardous. Unfortunately, this list was not shared in advance, so I'm not sure which the 76% is. But what I know is that there are various definitions of highly hazardous products. If you look at the FAO definition of a highly hazardous product, they classify using 8-point criteria. And for instance, all those that are under WHO class 1 are actually classified as highly hazardous. Fumigants that we use to treat our grains is classified as highly hazardous. Now, if there is another better alternative to fumigate our maize in silos, we don't mind, we could use it. But because of lack of better alternatives, really, that can control the pests that we have in this region, we have to use some of those products, but to be used by trained professionals. If you talk about methyl bromide, all over the world, there was an attempt to withdraw use of methyl bromide. And in Kenya, we also tried to phase it out. But right now, as we speak, as we export our horticultural produce to other destinations, they are saying you cannot export unless you treat with methyl bromide. So we are caught in between a rock and a hard place. The need to export clean produce with no pests. At the same time, the need to protect our environment. So that is the reason. So for now, we do not have methyl bromide in the country, but it's like other countries, including Australia, India, they are dictating that before you can export, you must fumigate with methyl bromide. So what do we do as a country? So that is why some of them are there. Rodenticides, we know about rats. Rats can only be killed using highly toxic products because they are mammals. So what other options do we have? So for now, WHO class 1, some of them are necessary. They are really necessary because of the situations that we are facing practically. So we wouldn't mind if we can get a list of the 76% of the molecules that were said to be banned. Then when it comes to banning, the international way of banning products is through the multilateral environmental agreements. And Kenya participates in all those meetings, both at the committee level and even at a high level. So if products are banned all over the world, we actually come back and domesticate those decisions. So what is banned elsewhere, basically, has also been banned in Kenya. However, countries can also make individual decisions. Like, for instance, I know a few products are under review in the European Union. Now, they have introduced hazardous way, in terms of evaluation, they do hazard evaluation for some of the products based on certain properties. In this area, because of the situations I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we have some unique situations like the desert locust, which do not occur in Europe. And therefore, it might not be possible for us to copy and paste policies that are done in the European Union and paste them here. Majority of the products that were mentioned in the petition were actually not banned in the European Union, but they are under review. Majority of them are not banned in the US, but they are under review. Majority of them are not banned in Japan. The majority of them are not banned in Australia. So if we are to ban, maybe we'll be one of the few countries in the world to ban those products. But where there are issues, we are part of the global arena. We are discussing the issues. And if there is need, then you will take action. So we are currently targeting to evaluate the 32 that were in the petition, and we have already done 4. And the outcome may be that we ban, depending on the situation, or we restrict some of those products, or we allow for use but under special conditions. But I don't want to put everything here because we are still debating on those molecules. Then Professor Mishieka made of it. Oh, sorry, Prof. All right.
Yeah, we can keep it brief so that because there is great interest for other members too.
Okay, thank you. Then list of banned products, they are on our website. We have a list on our website. And this has been a continuous activity. As I said, we have been participating in many international meetings. And where there are major issues, we don't just sleep, we come back and domesticate. So the list of the 43 products are on our website, and they can be accessed anytime. Dr. Nehemiah, on the porous borders, how we are addressing them. Kenya has been participating in the harmonization efforts under the East African community, and we are hoping that once the treaty is fully operational, then we will not have an issue of highly toxic products moving from one country to another. So we are also working on how to evaluate products together as a region made up of 7 partner states. Then on the issue of biopesticides, I heard that most of them are from outside. That is not really true. We have a number of biopesticides that are also done in Kenya, and I recall in the year 2006, Kenya was among the first few African countries to come up with the guidelines for registration of biopesticides. And we recognize 3 groups. We have the microbials, the macrobials, and biochemicals. And the board went out of its way to encourage local innovations. That is why we have companies like Dudutech. They produce and even export We have other companies. ICIPE has also been very active in the development of biopesticides. I think one other is that in the bill that I said is almost going to Parliament, we are provided for local innovations, that the board will put in place measures to encourage local innovations. So hopefully, if the bill goes through, then you start seeing some new developments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Just hold, we can go online. Let's have Dr. Silke. She's online. She can just make her comments briefly, and then we can come back to another cycle of questions. I hope she's listening. Is she there? Yep. As they're setting up, you can make your comment.
Yes, I would just like to answer quickly to the question the gentleman over there asked, why the focus on Kenya. Of course, you're right. This is very relevant all over, especially on the continent. We heard that the continent has so far a low share of sales, but we saw also the table where we saw the increases, and the biggest increase by 63%, if I recall correctly, is on the continent. So it's a very important question. The answer are resources, and we also were able to obtain facts and data on Kenya that allowed us to make the statements. So this is one of the answers. Our colleagues, by the way, in Nigeria do very similar work and will also publish soon a similar product with information on the pesticide use in Kenya. That is important. We will come back to you and see what we can do there. On the question of the 44%, that was also your question, the list. My colleague will answer to that. I would just make one remark, which is we are international organizations headquartered in Germany. So I think it is our responsibility to work on these double standards and to advocate for a stop of export of those products and ingredients that are not allowed for use anymore in the European Union. This, I think, it's very important, and we will have a video statement from the German politician in a few minutes on this one too. But I like Okay, so on the list of the 44, we come back to you later.
Okay.
Do we know if our colleague is
online?
Yeah,
Silke is online.
Okay.
So before we can lose her again, maybe we can just have her. After Silke is done, then we come to you. Okay, thanks.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I just want to reply to some of the questions, and I see there's a bit of confusion about the percentage of highly hazardous pesticides and the percentage of banned pesticides. So we've got the pesticide use data show 76% are highly hazardous pesticides and 44% are banned. And the reason is not all highly hazardous pesticides are banned in Europe. So even in Europe and all other countries, there are still highly hazardous pesticides in use. And that might answer Liz's question. About the list of banned pesticides based on the pesticide use data, the information is there, and it will be probably published soon in a report. The information is there, and you just need to get in contact with us to get that information. And just one last thing, the fact that biopesticides are quite expensive, I just want to also mention that biopesticides are not the only resort. They should also be the last resort in pest control. So we really need to focus on transformation of a system and looking and improving soil and water management to really give the plants and the crops the best environment they can get. And just one comment to PCPB, I don't think invasive species can be the reason for keeping highly hazardous pesticides on the market. So there's always the option to ban them with the exemption to control certain pesticides like locusts you just mentioned. It's always the same example coming from various stakeholders promoting these highly hazardous pesticides. So we really need to look at innovation and transformation versus creating fear and stay with business as usual. Thank you.
Thank you. So I can take 3 comments from here, the floor, and then I take 2 online. So our online audience will take 2 online and 3 here. So I'll start 1, then 2, and then the lady behind you, 3. And then 4 and 5 will be online. Thank you.
Hello, so my name's Leila Liebertrau. I'm a former program coordinator at the Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung, but I have recently returned to South Africa to be a nuisance there. So I'm here today a little bit in my independent capacity and representing the pesticides movement and agroecology movements back home. So I just want to give some general reactions to some remarks, Dr. Nguria, that you have given in your presentation and to what we're doing here today. This conversation hasn't started today in 2022. We started long before that and with the tabling of a petition in 2019. So this dispute or this real focus on the fact that we need a list of the 76 active ingredients that have recently been obtained by the Route to Food Initiative is not the main focus. There are 270 active ingredients registered by the PCPB in approximately 800 products. This was presented in a white paper published by the Route to Food Initiative in 2019. From that was the basis of the petition. From that, there's been a circular saying now there's 30 active ingredients, and we learned today that of those 30 active ingredients, 4 have so far been reviewed. I want to highlight that PCPB also issued a circular before the petition was tabled on 2 of the active ingredients that were mentioned today by Dr. Nguria. This is chlorothalonil and diuron. So these active ingredients have been under review since 2019. And we are now almost the end of 2022. The message today is clear and one that Liz clearly pointed out, my colleague here, Elizabeth. We need urgent action to remove highly hazardous pesticides from the Kenyan market. This is not a Kenyan problem, it is a global problem, an emerging issue that countries around the world are trying to address. And we need to consider how to move towards a just transition and agroecological practices. Call it what you will, sustainable practices, sustainable agriculture. In order to do that, I have a problem where people are saying that agroecology or integrated pest management strategies are non-scientific or non-modern. We saw this in the group chat on Zoom. It will require considerable science and considerable technology in order to be able to effectively roll out transition to a sustainable agriculture and to do so at scale. The lead and the cues for these people who are holding this knowledge is sitting in independent science and civil society. We have talked to hear Dr. Nguria a lot about involving all people, but at the same hand, we have seen there's a close affiliation with CropLife, represented here today by Agrochemical Association of Kenya and Agra, who both hold strong profit-orientated interests in maintaining the status quo around the world. My call to action for today would be 3 things. I resound the call to action for increased participation of independent scientists, drawn from a vibrant and energized civil society, nationally and internationally. I resound the call for increased funding for the PCPB to be able to independently execute its mandate without being reliant on funding from the private sector, whose interests are not aligned with a just transition towards a more sustainable agriculture, safe food and farming system. And lastly, I stand here to request urgent action to progressively move highly hazardous pesticides from this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next one.
Thank you so much.
Please, our online persons with the questions, they be on after the third. We go online. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Sidio Tieno. I'm a peasant agroecologist. I come from the Kenyan Peasants League, which is a movement led by smallholder food producers working in 6 counties. Well, I think my comrade here has just spoken what I wanted to say. But my question is this: I heard PCPB say that they didn't get response from government on funding. Where do you get your money? That's the first question. And whoever funds you, what interest do they have? You have constantly mentioned working with agrochemical industries. And she has said rightly that they promote their businesses. Are you here representing them or Kenyans? Because NCPB, you are being paid by Kenyans. Whose interest are you representing? When have you come to us to ask us? Because as a movement, and she has said that farmers are scientists. Scientists don't have to have white lab coats, having glasses in laboratories. Our farmers have been conducting research years. When have you come to them? And then lastly, you've spoken about working trainings with Swedish chemical agencies. You know, in all over your presentation, it seems you are talking on their behalf. When will you start speaking on behalf of the producers? And Professor Micheka, my able professor, I met him in Upper Kabete. I was a student at Upper Kabete campus. I took range management, and he said that organic means are expensive. Do you know why? Because government is not funding them. Yes, that's the reason. We are having various innovations by smallholder farmers. But if you look at the policies of the government are oriented. He said about methyl bromide, Australia. Why? What business do you have feeding Australians when Kenyans are starving?
Okay.
Yes, so you need to answer that. Thank you.
I think the questions are clear. At the end of it, Daktari, you will have a short moment just to weigh in at the very end. So I want to go to our online.
One more question.
Just a moment. Sure. Thank you. Like you're not on the hot seat, but you can gauge the interest in the public about this subject. So let's just have at least our online audience. Are they there? So the first one can go. I'll take 2 only. The first one can go. If they are not ready, then we can go to
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Can I go?
Sure. Go on, please.
Thank you. My name is Claire Nasike. I work with Greenpeace Africa. I have a question following Dr. Silke's presentation. I think it is evident that we're using a lot of herbicides, some of which are classified as highly hazardous. So my question is, are there any documents that list the recommended maximum residue levels in soils? I've noticed that there's a lot of focus on maximum residue levels in food, but little on soil and the impact that these herbicides are likely to have on soil microorganisms. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Dr. Silke will address that. The next question or comment online is there? Okay, go on, please.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So good morning from Nigeria. My name is Dona Odikena. the coordinator for the Alliance for Action on Pesticide in Nigeria, and I also work with the Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung Nigeria Office. I want to say that I'm so proud of Kenya for making this Pesticide Atlas possible. Nigeria has been mirroring and trailing your steps. And it's very, very necessary that, like one of the earlier commenters made mention, we need to take advantage of regional collaboration. There's a global movement to see how we could stop the double standard in the pesticide exports to developing countries like ours. So it's very, very necessary that we make good efforts to ensure regional collaboration, to take a very, very strong stand to stop the export of highly hazardous pesticides. On my question, which will be going to the Kenya Food Safety Agency, would be to know if they have any phase-out plan for highly hazardous pesticides that are already banned. Do they have a blueprint or a phase-out strategy for this? And I think I heard a question where someone was asking, is food production or the safety of consumers, more of a priority? So as a food safety agency, my question is, why are they not at the front? I mean, they should be at the front. Why are they not at the front in the promotion and call for biopesticides and other nature-based alternatives? So it will be very, very necessary to know the role of food safety agency in terms of promoting the alternative. So from all of us in Nigeria, I want to say a big congratulations to HBS Kenya and the Kenyan family, the Kenyan people. You guys are brilliant, and we really, really commend this effort. Africa can be the organic capital of the world.
Thank you.
And I think that we need to take cognizance and advantage of. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let's just have one last one online, then we can wrap up on that. The last one. Someone is there? If they are not ready, we can... Okay, seems they are not ready. So, yeah, so I come this side. There was number 3. Okay, good. Number 3. So let me have 3 from here. 1, 2, and the lady behind there. 3, okay. So for the interest of time, because we want to go to the next session, I will request that we keep our comments as brief as possible so that we can engage as many as possible. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Catherine Ryungu. I'm a journalist and the secretary of the Agriculture Media Association. And I have a feeling that you may need to engage agriculture journalists in another workshop because we really need to understand and bring these issues up to speed. That said, I have just like 2 or 3 questions, one of which is, recently, when there were reports that some of Kenya's avocado exports had been banned in certain countries over some product, I'll call it CHP because I can't pronounce the entire name. And I engaged PCPB, and Dr. Kimani told me that the chemical was actually banned on avocados. We went to the PCPB website to raise a list of chemicals that had this as an active ingredient, and some of them were listed from a company called Dow that is no longer in existence, having merged with Corteva. And they told me that they even discontinued the use of that particular product, yet it was still listed on the PCPB website. And I would like to ask PCPB whether it was an oversight, or once we discontinue importation or even manufacture of certain products, they still remain on your website. Number 2, you mentioned PCPB again about the challenges we have with extension services. I've heard that a million times. What exactly is the issue with our extension services? Lastly, I'm not an expert I said I'm a journalist, but I can answer somebody who asked what happens with the doo-doos that we manufacture after they are done eating other doo-doos. I am told, and by the way, Kenya is arguably the most vibrant country in the world when it comes to IPM. We export a lot of this technology, and we have a good number of companies that are in doo-doo manufacturing. The Real IPM, Copat, Andermatt, Kenya Biologicals, Doo-Doo-Tech, Isipe. Kenya is actually on the global map. I'm saying that not as an industry player or an interested party, but as a journalist. Disclaimer. So I'm told once they are done eating the bad guys is a phrase that these fellows use. They say we have the good guys who eat the bad guys, especially in flowers. Once they are done eating the bad guys, they eat each other. So I don't know what happens to the last guy.
Okay, we have a dilemma there, but we get the point. As you weigh in, for the experts who are here, maybe we may also give responses to some of the questions because we don't have a panel, so to speak. The legal people, there is a concern like if you fall sick, you develop an ailment, or because of use of a given pesticide in food or whatever, what is the remediation in terms of the legal implication because of these ingredients in food? So if somebody has a health problem courtesy of pesticides, what is the way forward for that particular person? The legal people, if you have an opportunity, you may weigh in, or the experts. So we were having three here. Once again, please keep it short for the interest of many. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Elijah Mwangi. I'm a journalist as well, and it's an honor being in a room full of experts. Now, for me, I want to go basic because there is one question which is disturbing me as I was following the conversations. Because I want to ask myself, why are farmers using these banned substances? Why are farmers using pesticides? Chances are that these pesticides are working for them. The only bad part is that they are compromising on food safety. And so when biological control methods or the biopesticides are presented, the question that begs is, are these biological control methods as effective as the methods that they are using? And could it be that they are not aware? So as we respond to that, for me, I think we need to shift the conversation from the problem finding, because we're in a sorry state of affairs. We have a lot of problems, and they are there in the Pesticide Atlas, to a solutions-based conversation. And so the challenge would be for me to challenge HBS, just like the way we've had this particular forum, which to me, there is a lot of problem finding. Can we have a forum that we discuss and we critically look at the proposed alternatives? Are they practical for the farmers? Because at the end of the day, there must be a reason why farmers are not using these biological control methods. So how I wish, Director, we can have a conversation centered on solutions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Solutions. Okay?
Let me stand. Let me start by asking, how many medical doctors trained locally at Johns Hopkins and Harvard are in this audience? Medical doctors. Can I see your hands? You see there's none. I am perhaps the only one, and in many fora, including international fora, I happen to be the only one in these kind of environments. So listen to me very carefully. My name is Peter Ogera Mokaya. I'm the CEO of Organic Consumers Alliance, Africa, not just Kenya. I'm based in Kampala. I just flew in here for this meeting because it's that important. And I know the online audience is listening. Now, I want to firstly thank, well, I also sit on the board of Non-Communicable Disease Alliance, cancers and so on, for Kenya, for East Africa, and for Africa. There must be a reason why I sit in all those boards. I'm also a member of the Alliance for Food Sovereignty for Africa, which is in 50 countries out of 55 countries in Africa. And I've visited almost all these countries. I'm in medical practice for 35 years. I went to school here, I went to Alliance, I went to Nairobi University, I worked in Cambridge. So when I speak, I speak from a position of authority, and I represent some very serious interests. Good people, I want to thank the team that organized this Pesticide Atlas meeting. Why? Because right now, Kenya, East Africa, Africa, and indeed the globe is faced with an ecosystem existential threat. Let that sink in. One of the reasons for that, as you can see from the reports, is use or reckless use of synthetic pesticides. In case you didn't know, please know. Secondly, over the last 35 years of our medical practice, we've noticed an increase of cancer. Listen to this very carefully. Even this weekend, we are traveling to go and bury people, and all of you here. Yeah? What has caused this increase of cancers, diabetes, heart diseases, strokes, yeah, and all sorts of other conditions that we doctors are cleaning the mess, what we call mopping the floor. Good people, the problem is upstream. How we grow the food and what we use to grow the food. And that's why I told people I left clinical practice and went to work with farmers. Why? Because food is medicine. And if farmers are growing food that is safe, then we are all safe. There is no you and us, all of us here. Right now there's a drought in this country. And that's why we say those who want to bring in GMOs, bring them in, but bring them as grains, make food available, because the difference is between life and death. But make sure that that food that comes in is safe. Why? FAO defines food security as food that's available to all people at all times, that meets their nutritional preferences, but also that significantly is safe. Is safe. Is our food safe? No, most of our food is not safe. One of the reasons why our food is not safe is because of that unchecked use of synthetic pesticides, chemicals, and agrochemicals. Even those who produce them know that. This is why in Missouri, where former Monsanto, now Bayer, was based, those guys who are producing GMOs, guess what they were eating in their restaurants? Can you guess? Organic. So good people, we are on the same boat. There is no Professor Micheka supporting GMOs and Dr. Mokaya supporting organic. No. We all want safe food. We are on the same boat. We all want the best interests for all Kenyans, all Africans, and everybody on this earth. Therefore, mine is a call to action. We cannot stop pesticides immediately. As Professor Micheka said correctly, it's impossible. But let us determine to shift our mindset from protecting vested interests of the big agrochemical companies, which we all know, and those interests are in here, to looking at what's better for humankind, for the common good of all people. Those people dying out there, we bury them. They're costing us money in the hospitals. Let's fix our food system. So my summary, and I'll speak on behalf of many other physicians, let us together, as Professor Micheka correctly said, sit together and find a way of reducing, I'm not saying stop, because organic can't feed the world right now, of reducing the use of especially these toxic, highly hazardous chemicals. So I want to make it a call to action very passionately that we can't sit here and protect business interests. This is a global existential threat. We will all perish. Right now you can see for the side, birds in the US, more than 70% are gone. Bees are gone. Many foods that we used to eat, are not there anymore. So for me, this meeting is a trigger for a national conversation of people interested in a bottom-up approach to protect the interests of hustlers, to all come together and ensure that we chart a path where we reduce, I didn't say stop, the use of these dangerous chemicals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was a passionate appeal. Before I take, we could take some 4 or 5 minutes and listen to some remarks from the German Member of Parliament by the name of Karl Bahr. And we can also get a feel of what the political arm has to do as far as shaping policy for the good of mankind. So please, you wanted to say a word? Okay.
I just want to add a very quick note to that. So Karl Bahr, who we see here, he's a member of the Food and Agriculture Committee of the German Bundestag. So this committee is currently visiting Kenya. We were hoping to have him here, but they are very much engaged in meetings. They've been yesterday in Thika at the bioorganic farm, the whole committee. So we asked him to speak from the German perspective, because what we talk about here is, and it has been said several times, an international and a global issue, and it needs to be tackled from all sides. That's why we invited him. And one of my colleagues, it's a message in German, one of my colleagues actually spoke in English, so it's dubbed, and yes, I'd like to invite you to listen to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So please, we can play it. We have to listen to this statement.
Liebe Freundinnen und Freunde in Kenia.
Dear friends in Kenya, I am happy about this opportunity, and I am thrilled that it is also a Kenya edition of the Pesticide Atlas from the Heinrich-Böll Foundation. Because the pesticide debate and associated action tackles critical issues such as environmental protection, the production of healthy food, and the protection of people from the effects of agricultural toxins. My name is Karl Bahr. I'm a member of parliament in Germany, but I was approximately 1 year before my election engaged in environmental movement in Germany and Europe. I worked for the Environment Institute in Munich, and among other things, co-founded the European Citizens Initiative on saving bees and farmers. Here we gathered over 1 million signatures to advocate for the gradual exit of the chemical synthetic pesticides used in the whole of Europe. That should be the goal for all of us, and I believe that we would do well to work together to achieve it. I will give you 2 examples of why the fight against pesticides is not a national one, or one that can only take place in limited protected areas. The first example is something we, the Green Party, are doing as part of the federal government here in Germany. Our Federal Minister for Agriculture and Consumer Protection, Cem Özdemir, has proposed introducing a ban on the export of pesticides that are harmful to health and are banned here. An export ban will end the double standards of banning active ingredients here because we unanimously agree they are too dangerous, while at the same time, our companies in Germany and Europe still export these ingredients to other countries where they harm and damage humans and nature. I know you are fighting to register and ban toxic pesticides in Kenya, and we are fighting to stop the export now. That goes well together. We should get off these double standards. And the second example of why we can't fight here alone for the preservation of nature is the migratory birds, like the hooper. For example, you may know they are probably on their way to you now. When it's summer here, they are with us. If they can't find food for their offspring, they cannot come to you in winter. Conversely, if they disappear from your country, they will not be able to spend their summer in our country. If we want to preserve nature, we have to do it all over the world, and we have to preserve our biodiversity, our oceans, our forests, and everything that keeps us alive, especially our climate. And for this, we must fight together. I am happy that I have allies in Kenya, and I wish you a successful meeting and a nice lunch. See you soon.
Thank you. Can have a powerful message there. As we bring this almost to a close, maybe I can just give Alice Kemunto on behalf of Consumer Grassroots Association. We can listen to the voice of the consumers as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Alice Kemuto from Consumer Grassroots Association, and I'm glad for this event at least. HBF and Root to Food Initiative, they have always worked with consumers and consumer organizations. One of the questions that I wanted to pose has already been asked about the redress mechanism in the event we consume food that is full of toxic pesticides and a consumer gets affected or somehow develops some complications out of that. So that one has already been posed. But then I want to challenge the scientists that are in the house, the academia in the house, because most of the information that you have is seated in your shelves, is seated within your circles. And this information has not been broken down, and also it has not trickled down to consumers. Yet, when you're talking about farming, all the produce that are coming from the farm system or the food system end up in my plate. So a consumer is a key stakeholder because we bear the burden of the food system. We bear the burden of production, we bear the burden of transportation, storage, and at the end of it, we bear the burden of that retailer in the market. So I want to challenge you that even as you come up with this useful information, package it in a way that a common consumer can understand. Because if we understand what is contained in food, we will push for government to ensure that every product in the market is labeled, so that we can have a right to choose which product we are to buy for our own consumption. So mine is solution-based, Mr. The one who said here that this is a problem kind of based meeting, but I believe it's also solution-based, and I'm offering this solution that let us break down this information to the common consumer. You and I know we are consumers, but there are those that cannot be able to break this information and digest this information for their own use. So that you can also get to know how we are operating. I'm not only the director for Consumer Grassroots Association, I'm also the coordinator for consumer organizations in Kenya, and we are now at the tail end of coming up with a consumer movement for East Africa. So kindly let us be in touch. We have a huge membership, and we can be able to escalate this information down to the grassroots. For those who are learned in this house, if we talk to 100 or 500,000 consumers, calculate and see the ripple effect. So your work will be easier if we collaborate as stakeholders. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate. Of course, we will agree that we cannot have enough time to have everyone contribute to the important discussion. And so, as per our program, we will now come to the tail end of our meeting today. Let me just mention that the owner of car KCT 236G, kindly you are requested to move your car, is blocking some exit, KCT 236G. Okay. My elder professor, let me give you 30 seconds, you say. Okay.
I think really all of you have done excellent work, excellent discussions on this. And Madam, I'm not a member of your movement. I would love to be. But let me say this. My brother, you have not. He didn't have enough time to explain what goes on. Kenya sits in all these meetings and puts a signature on any chemical compound pesticide to be banned. They don't come to domesticate it here because they don't have a forum like this to come and explain that chemical XYZ has been banned or put in a list of being banned or just threatening. So that's number one. Number two, the extension service, as you asked, the Agricultural Information Office, really, there is no budget. There was a budget once for extension services, not there anymore in the ministry. Ask it. She asked a very important question, I think it's good for you to understand, you being an academia. If you import, say, an insect, the language Kemundo was using, an insect, to deal with another insect, or another animal, or a plant, and in case that insect clears everything it was brought for to clear, that insect should not turn around and start eating any other creature. It should starve to death. That is the research that really should be done to avoid importation of anything that can come here, mutate, change its morphology, lifestyle, start eating human beings instead of being meant for the other. So the answer is clear. You should not import anything into the country that will turn against the original target. Let that insect starve to death at that point in time. And there has to be heavy research done on that. If anybody has that importation of such a product, they should actually go to jail. You never import a material that will turn against your ecosystem. Lastly, sir, just 2 seconds. There are crops, really, that are very, very easy to use organic material. Absolutely so. People should not think we don't think. Various, like tomatoes, cabbage, sukuma, etc., can easily use the material from organic material. The forest we devour, we destroy. Material can be used to indeed utilize organic substances. It is the large-scale crops that may need large quantities of that organic material that may have a problem. Otherwise, I want to register with you. I'm part of your movement, except I stand fairly neutral in some of the issues. Thank you so much for giving me this time. Thank you.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this to the tail end, we appreciate each one's presence and our contributions. We all agree that we all have a role to play in the subject of toxic pesticides. The government, represented ably, who you've had the deep concerns of the general public, and I hope that this will bear fruit in the near future, that there will be an urgency in the action plans. Of course, all of us, the journalists, you are here, you know now there's need for communication. The scientist may speak in technical language, speaking to fellow scientists, but at the end of the day, when you come from your lab, you go home and eat food like any other person. And so we need to be sure that what we eat is safe, for we are only as healthy as the food we eat. Having said that, I'll now wish to invite the following people in that order to give final remarks, summary closing remarks, and call to action. So let me begin by inviting Emmanuel Atamba. Please come and in summary, few words as possible, give us a parting shot and a call to action. Okay, so I'm told after you are done, then there will be no one coming after you. So that means the floor is yours. You give the parting shot as best as you could. Thank you.
Okay. Asante Daktari, we should appreciate him for the good work. My name is Emmanuel Atamba, and you know, when Daktari started talking, he reminded me some of my teachers. Because Professor is here, you might think I'm talking about him, but in primary school, you know, we had this parade in the morning. And there's this one teacher who would always come and say, I have nothing to add. I just want to do what? To echo. I want to echo what Mwalimu has said. So let me first of all echo what everyone has said. And then, but I think I want to thank you all for a very lively and candid conversation today. It has actually been a very enriching and engaging morning, and we appreciate that. It is clear from the discussions we have had today that we have a problem. And it is clear that we have some of the most toxic products in the world in our market today. And even from the data presented and the discussions, that 76% in terms of volume, not in terms of active ingredients, but in terms of volume, of all pesticides used in Kenya are classified as HHPs. And out of the pesticide we use, 44% would not have been used in the EU. So we have a problem. And I think it's clear that even from the discussions in the room and the presentations, that we really need to put an end to this double standard. I think if it is not safe in the EU, it cannot be safe here. Whatever you want to discuss about which approach they use, whether it's hazard-based or risk-based, if it is not safe for a human being in the EU, it is not safe for a human being in Kisii and in Chwele, where this gentleman was presenting with the correct pronunciation of the Western regions. So, the level of misuse and mishandling, as has been discussed, is clear that it's very high, that people are basically toying around with these pesticides out there. And we agree, we all agree that there's a problem in terms of how producers interact and use these products. We have moved over the last 15 years. I'm quite young, as I think some of you can visibly tell, but when I was a small boy, we used to refer to pesticides as sumu. True or false? But today we refer to them as what? Dawa. When you call something dawa, what does it do to you? It desensitizes you. That now farmers are looking at pesticides not as poison. And I think people who are translating Swahili are doing us, very bad disservice. When you translate pesticide, which means poison for pest, to dawa, which means medicine, you know, it's like someone goes to the shop and says, nataka dawa ya panya. Is your rat sick? You know. Because you're desensitizing the public that this is not poison, this is medicine. It is not medicine. Let our people know the truth, that the products that they are dealing with are poisons. And I think that becomes the conversation now when you're talking about awareness. I think it's very important that all of us are engaged in these conversations. It is not a responsibility of PCPB alone, but can we do the awareness correctly? Can we have that movement changing from dawa back to sumu, start from PCPB, so that people can understand that it's poison, it is not medicine. For most Kenyans, our farms are our homes. There are no adequate measures to protect a majority of rural populations that are constantly exposed to pesticides in the air, in the water they drink, and the food they eat. It is basically everywhere in the rural areas. Whether you are just walking around, someone is spraying during the day without any consideration of the buffer and everything. People are basically exposed because we live in those farms. There is no way of avoiding exposure to consumers who have no guarantee whatsoever of the quality and safety of their food, and who has grown it and how they have grown it. Farmers are also constantly exposed to all manner of risks due to inadequate awareness and knowledge when they use pesticides. And of course, because they are referring to them as dawa instead of sumu. We have no choice but to act. The Pest Control Products Board have said, and I want, even if I'll be the only one in the room, but I want to really put a lot of trust in Dr. Ngaruya. He is a very nice gentleman, and I think the leadership of PCPB has made commitments in the past that they are willing to work on these issues. What we just want to add, and I think you should clap for him. You know, there is a change. Some time back you would call government people, they will not come. He has come, he has given us the information, he has presented, and I think, as someone has said, this is not us versus them. It is not us fighting against the government. Who elected this government? Not everyone, but I think collectively, it is us. So I think it's important that we recognize that they are trying to put effort, but we need to we cannot stop to emphasize that they have to hold their mandate and their responsibility to a high standard, and they have to act urgently. As we have said, it cannot take 4 years or 3 years to review for active ingredients and take action on them. I think it's important that we put the urgency of these issues where it's supposed to be. So I really want to urge that there is acceleration on that front. The new government must also realize that this is a situation where, you know, this, the old man said, usipoziba ufa utajenga nini? Ukuta. Because if you do not address, as Daktari Mokaya has said, who is a very good friend of mine, despite the age difference, but Daktari has said, if you do not address these issues, then you see them in the health, appearing in the healthcare system. And we do not want that, because it is more costly to deal with them. So we better deal with the issues that are there. And we want to encourage that we need to have conversations. There is a need for the government to actually invest in ensuring that consumers are safe and that the issues that are there should be arrested. But ladies and gentlemen and comrades, as my able comrade has used this word, I think someone mentioned alliance, but we are not going to mention where we went to school. But it is easy to dwell here, comrades, and complain and raise questions. But I want to go slightly beyond that. On a very serious note, that as we hold those directly responsible to account, which is the right thing to do, and we must continue to do that. To PCPB, we must continue to ask them, how fast are you doing this? Where are you with this process? To the industry, to AAK, we must continue to ask you to be responsible in the business that you do, to be responsible in making sure that the farmers who are getting these products understand the risks that are involved in that. So we must continue to hold them accountable. But we also must recognize that all of us collectively also have a role to play. Civil society organizations, regulators, politicians, academia, producers, consumers, all of us have a role to play in making sure that we see the change that we want to see and that we are forging forward towards a more sustainable and equitable food system. We all need to invest in awareness creation. I think it has been mentioned here severally. The awareness creation is not something that Dr. Ngaruya will move around this country and go to Chwele and go back to Kimana and everywhere and speak. I think this is something that all of us need to continue to do. We are here, we have learned something, can we share? Can we share to 10 people? Can we share to 50 people? And we must continue to do this because sometimes, as someone has mentioned, I am a farmer myself and these days I interact with farmers a lot. Over the weekend, mostly I'm in Eldoret. Sometimes farmers just want to know, is there any alternative that works? If you cannot answer that question, then whatever else you are telling them does not work. So we all need to invest in these conversations. So as I end, and this is the first time I will say this, I'll say it like 3 times, but as I end, the late Professor Wangari Maathai told the story of the hummingbird. How many of you have heard the story of the hummingbird? Ah, good. So I have the chance to tell it because some people have not heard it. But Wangari Maathai tells this story about the forest that caught fire. And all the animals ran out of the forest and stood by the side of the forest. And they looked as their home was being, raged by this fire. But one hummingbird, very small bird with a tiny beak, decided to do something. So it was going to the forest, taking a drop of water, coming back, dropping it on the fire. But the other animals, some of the big animals like the elephants and all that, they were telling the hummingbird, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? You cannot put out the fire. But it said, I am doing the best that I can. This conversation about pesticides and moving away from toxic pesticides has its hummingbirds. And some of the hummingbirds are farmers like Sylvia Kuria, who is very renowned for her organic farm in Deya, and who has made sure that she teaches as many people as possible that it is possible to grow without toxic pesticides. Some of these people include Bwana Nicholas Yano of DNRC in Makueni, who is teaching farmers that it's possible. The natural solutions that we are talking about are possible. Muranga Organic Farmers Cooperative, Kirinyaga, Busia Organic Farmers Cooperative, Machakos Organic Farmers Cooperative, who are not only growing and experimenting with these technologies and techniques in their farms, but also training people in their communities, so that gradually we can start to change, as we have said, change the way people view these issues. There is also a very good friend of mine called Gregory Kimani of City Shamba, who is doing kitchen gardens here in Nairobi and trying to show people that it's possible to grow safe food in the city. Charles Lukani of Voices for Change is doing the same. So people are doing their bit. Are we the ones telling them, what are you doing? Are we the ones discouraging them? Then we need to be able to join them. Honorable Shobley, who unfortunately was not able to join us, is definitely our hummingbird in Bunge. And she has decided and taken this as a personal initiative to make sure that the political class gets this message and acts. And I think we should be able to appreciate that. The private sector also has its hummingbirds. I think someone presented some of the names here, and it's important to recognize that there are people who are working day and night to make sure that there are alternatives to these pesticides that are toxic, so that as we talk about phasing them out, we also are building the conversation alternatives. So going forward, I think it's important to not only raise questions, but to try as much as possible to provide answers to some of the questions that we raise, that it is important to invest in safer, sustainable alternatives at whatever scale and showcase what is possible. Finally, we should continue to urge all who have capacity to research on alternatives to continue to do so. Those who can publish and distribute information on alternatives to continue to do so. It is urgently needed, as we have discussed. Those who have spaces, and I'm speaking to very serious landowners here, and I know they are looking at me. So those who have spaces, whether it's farms or gardens, to donate them, donate them to demonstrate good practices, even at village level. Show people the good practices and experiment on alternatives in our own spaces. We don't need funding to do that. Those in media to continue highlighting these issues. So this one I'm echoing what Dr. said. We continue to highlight and bring to their attention. And the policy, we urge policymakers at all levels, at county level, at national level, to continue to invest resources towards food and farming systems that enhance, rather than compromise our natural resources, which are the foundation of our food. The true cost of the status quo, leaving things as they are now, is higher than any investment we need to make to change the situation. So, and I want to urge the industry to continue, because some are already moving in this direction, to invest in more safe, sustainable crop production products. And I urge all of us to do the little things that we can do, like the little hummingbird, to stop the fire. It is possible to imagine a food system free from toxic pesticides, but it's also possible to achieve it. So, and as HBS, we continue to publish in this conversation, we continue to invest in conversations around alternatives. We have so much discussions around agroecological alternatives, whether at policy level, practical level, and we work with our partners who are doing some very good work on the ground in ensuring that these messages are there and these conversations are happening. So we promise to continue investing in providing spaces for dialogue like this, where people can come and discuss and find solutions forward. So I don't want to go beyond that, but I just want to urge us to keep this conversation going. Let us encourage dialogue. Let us talk openly without fear about these issues, because this is not civil society versus industry. This is not people who are in government versus people who are outside government. This is about our food. It is about our health. It is about our farms. It is about our future. It is about our children. So we are all connected in this one big conversation. So I want to thank you very much for your participation and your attention. And I want to wish you a very lovely afternoon. And we look forward to continuing the engagements. And if there is any possible information that can come from whichever side, please feel free to share. Let us engage. Let us build a strong one movement that doesn't talk about only the problems, as it has been said, but we are also trying to make sure that we are able to be on the front line in providing alternatives. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I think that is the end of the program. Thank you.
We can give one more round for that one. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We've come to the end of the program. And it is not how much we can do, but what little we have already done. So I pray that all of us will play our role in this big subject. So having said that, I want to invite all of us to a small pesticide-free lunch. So we are free to leave now as we go out and have a snack out there. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.